Welcome back, college baseball fans. We're here. We're opening weekend. We're season 2, episode 1. We're getting going here. Wonderful guys. We got Jake and Alex are down right now. They're down in Arlington, down there at Globe Life. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties down there with them and their audios, but we got Jake McKeever, Noah Darling's joining us from home, and then myself, of course, Mark Garland. This is the weekend rotation for those of you who have not gone and seen an episode with us. You see Alex walking in the background here. These two guys are going to
Alex
share a
and me,
laptop
Fran.
because one was not working. But yeah, we're really excited for the season to start. Another thing we're excited about is that we have a new partner this year. So we have Home Field Apparel. Terrific clothes, terrific fan gear. Go out and buy all their stuff. Use code CBC15 to get 15% off your first order. Every order after that, I believe, is 10% off. But yeah, it's really good stuff. Cool brands. They probably got your sports team in there. So go take a look. Go buy their stuff. Hats, clothes. It's baseball season. We're getting into it here. How we doing, fellas? How we doing, Jake?
Great first day. I think it was almost picturesque. If I was to draw up a perfect day, A&M wins, Texas loses, Iowa State still doesn't have a team. It checked all 3 boxes for me.
Noah, how we doing this morning?
Well, my Iowa State Cyclones have as many wins as your Beavers, Mark. So it's a pretty good year so far. We'll see if that continues into today.
Ouch. Yeah. There's some stuff to talk about. I mean, let's get into unloading some of this stuff here. What was the biggest thing we saw? I know for me yesterday it was kind of the Oregon State kind of came out flat. A lot of offenses. Tennessee came out flat. Oregon against Xavier came out flat. Oklahoma State puts up only 5 in that game against Missouri. Missouri looked great. Some teams just didn't really put up offense. And then you look at teams like Virginia who put up 24 and look like they're midseason form for the ACC. Give me a couple things here, Noah, that you noticed from yesterday's first game.
Yeah, you didn't even mention it, but Stanford going into Cal State Fullerton. Is Fullerton back? They look like it. They pounded Stanford. Stanford ace Quinn Matthews just really didn't look like himself last night. And it was one of those deals where the Stanford offense just could never get going. We saw it. Same thing with Oregon State. I don't know what's going on. It's certainly not a Pac-12 thing because UCLA put up 16 on my alma mater. So we'll see. It's very early, but everybody wants to win on opening day. It almost feels like it's bigger than one game. So we'll see how teams react. Tennessee, not off to a great start with the whole chirping at the umpires thing. That can have a long-term effect more than just losing one game.
Yeah, and you see other teams that we're happy to see back. Mississippi State goes down. They put up 11 runs. They look like they're back healthy. Oklahoma struggles a little bit with Cal Baptist. LSU, 0 problems with Western Michigan. Paul Skeens is for real. That guy is scary good. It's really hard.
No errors, too, Mark, for LSU. Alex said that yesterday. No errors. So that was very un-Tiger-like.
Whole new. I know. They make no errors. The Beavers make 3 errors. We're just swapping stories right now. I don't love the start here that we're looking at. Another big one, Kansas goes out and gets their first one of the season already. Kansas starts off 1-0. South Carolina puts up 20 runs against UMass Lowell, but they still put up 20 runs. So there was a lot of good baseball yesterday. Arizona State comes back to win in the 9th inning. Utah goes and beats San Francisco. I mean, Virginia Tech loses to College of Charleston. Our boy AJ had a lot of these picked, and he was dead right on those. I just couldn't believe what we were seeing across the baseball landscape. North Carolina loses to Seton Hall. Like, there's a lot of good ranked teams that lost yesterday, and it was really shocking to go through all of college baseball. The one that did win, Ole Miss, who I didn't want to win, beat Delaware 11-2. But they kind of looked like they were just coming back after that season, and they were ready to rock and roll. So, AJ, we're just going through some of the highlights from yesterday. Why don't you point out a couple key points for us, bud?
Yeah, I heard you already point out College of Charleston. I was very happy about that one, especially because Jake was trying to place a little friendly wager on that series.
Jake
I'm actually really glad I didn't place that.
No, you were just pretending to talk to
He never
somebody
set the
to
terms.
get out of that.
No,
It was actually Enrique Bradfield. He asked for my autograph.
No, you didn't see him. He's too fast.
Well, if you just saw like a zip, that was Enrique.
Another good team that dropped yesterday, Maryland losing to South Florida. Like, we had 5 or 6 ranked teams just get beat yesterday, straight up. I know that Maryland's top hitters, they were something like 1 for 11 yesterday in the game. It really wasn't, they struggled. Same thing with Oregon State. A lot of their returning talent struggled. A lot of the newbies did well. West Virginia lost to Georgia Southern, so that's good.
Is that
And
an
the
upset
biggest
though?
loss-
I mean,
What?
I don't even feel like that's an upset with what Georgia Southern. Like at
Absolutely
all.
not.
Like
I just like when West Virginia loses. It makes me feel better about myself. The other one that really made me feel
maybe
really
they're
good.
right though. Maybe they won't finish 7th in the Big 12.
They're a 7th place team if I've ever seen one. The other one that made me really happy was watching Notre Dame lose to Lipscomb. I don't know why that just brought me so much joy. My hate for Notre Dame came out in all facets yesterday. I was so pumped about it. I felt like, am I rooting for Lipscomb or am I just rooting against Notre Dame? It's official. I'm just rooting against Notre Dame. Link Jarrett's no longer there, so boo to Notre Dame. Sorry for all you fans who love Notre Dame, but you're wrong. So anyway,
wrong.
when I look at it, they're definitely wrong. They can't be right. And Miami goes down. Noah, what happened to the revenge tour? We're losing game 1 to Penn State.
Yeah, I think that the revenge tour kind of just, they said, we need a little bit more ammo for some revenge. It was kind of an embarrassing game for Miami because I was pouring stock into them last year. Could you imagine the scene if this had happened a year ago? I would have been going insane. It would have been mentioned in my opening deal. But this year, we're just going to pretend it didn't happen. We're on to game 2.
So let's go down to the Globe Life stuff here while we got Jake down there. Why don't you tell us about all 3 of those games down there? Obviously, the Arkansas-Texas game was probably the best game of the day. Why don't you go ahead and walk us through those 3 games and how the atmosphere was down there?
Of course, we'll kind of walk it back. We'll start with that best game. Texas, Arkansas, for as much of a brand as Texas baseball was, it was 70% Arkansas. Every single time that Woo Pig would break out and it would be deafening. Texas would try and do a Texas fight, and all the Arkansas fans would yell at them, Texas sucks. And you kind of touched on it earlier about how the guys that you almost expected to get production out of for Texas, they got it from their transfers. They had, the home run from Porter Brown, as well as, the USC product, that catcher. That was where he kind of, got him back in the game. And Arkansas got the hit when it mattered, and they honestly had the pitching, but that almost felt like a tournament game. Like, if you're a Texas fan or player, you really feel good that you kind of gave Arkansas your best shot and just came up a little short. That second game, TCU, I don't want to talk a bunch of crap because we're literally like feet from the Vandy dugout, but, TCU kind of blew it open there in the middle of it with their bullpen. So that was kind of a lot of their, early worries was how their bullpen was going to do. And then Richardson out the Baylor transfer from TCU. I touched on him in our preview show. He kind of had the big hit to blow it open. And then Oklahoma State, Missouri, Oklahoma State, it was kind of more the same for them where they jumped out, got hot really early, and then just kind of, plateaued and disappeared. And luckily they had enough talent. And I don't think Missouri had the firepower to kind of compete with Oklahoma State. But it was weird. For as much as we talked about how much college baseball has changed, it really does stay the same. A lot of things that we expected to happen, like Vandy's bullpen and Oklahoma State plateauing, happened in Globe Life.
Yeah, and I know that last week that AJ and I had mentioned that Vandy, we just didn't see the production coming. They only had 5 hits. Like, that's the production numbers that we're worried about seeing. Carter Holton was good to start that game, but then after that, the bullpen was roughed up, and they got 0 production on the offensive side. They just couldn't hang in that game. Oklahoma State was a little surprising to see them not put more up on Missouri's bullpen, but they came in and did a great job out there. TCU just looked great. I mean, we're not going to shit on anybody, but TCU looked like they were the best team down there right now. We're going to see what happens in game 2 today, but we're really excited for that Globe Life tournament down there. We're really excited to have you guys down there.
Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere is electric. It has a tournament vibe to it with all the fans that are in and out. I mean, I've even seen some Missouri fans come in and out, so it's kind of cool to see, a collection of fan bases here.
Alex, why don't you go ahead and let us know a little bit more about that since you're down there too. How are you feeling about this Globe Life tournament down there with Jake?
Oh man, the atmosphere last night was electric. I was kind of amazed at the difference between the Arkansas and Texas fan bases. Arkansas loaded this place out and they were loud. I mean, I thought we were at Baum Walker.
So the difference is Arkansas is smart and Texas isn't? Is that what I heard?
Arkansas certainly cares. You might not be able to say the same about Texas anymore.
That is crazy because that is not that far from the Texas campus, right? We're only a couple hours away.
About 3.5 hours.
Oh, geez. Texas is big. I forget about that.
Well, they're 5.5 hours out of Fayetteville. That's per Dave Van Horn. I don't know if that's an accurate number.
That is what he
That is
said
an
during
accurate number.
Yeah. All right, Noah, what do you have to add here for this yesterday's set of games?
Well, it was
Let's
just
go to
exciting
AJ.
to have college baseball back. You kind of get used to that NCAA tournament phase where, okay, we have maybe 30 games going on at once at most, and then it slims down to, all right, there's 20 all day, all right, and there's 10, and now all of a sudden we're in Omaha and there's only 2 games per day, and you're only able to watch one at a time, and then all of a sudden we come back to opening day and there's 400 on at the same time, and I'm supposed to follow every little bit. So it's great. It's exhausting. It's going to be a long season, but I can't wait. It's so good. This is the best sport on the planet. It seems like LSU might be in a little bit of trouble with Tommy White, though, if Tommy White's banged up. Waiting on news on that one, but we'll see. Alex got very animated with that throw back to first base, which I thought was totally a fine throw, but I guess since Tommy White got hurt, it was a bad throw.
It was a terrible throw because Tommy White got hurt. And so Jay Johnson talked about after the game and said that they had to pop his shoulder back into place, but he said they won't play today because of soreness, but they don't think there's any structural damage. But we'll see if they have any other updates for us today.
That's why I was shocked yesterday when people were calling it a wrist injury. I'm like, I've seen this injury before. That's a dislocated shoulder when you slide back into the bag and it pops back like that. He jumped up immediately and he didn't move his arm and he went right into the dugout. I'm like, why are people calling this a wrist injury? That definitely looks like a shoulder injury.
Yeah, it was just what they said on the radio broadcast.
Yeah. No, I understand that. It's scary, too, when you're talking about the opening day and you come out there and you start getting, you get a hit early and then all of a sudden you're hurt. Like, this is just not the way that LSU wanted to start the season, other than the fact that Paul Skeens looks like he's a dude and that's just going to be zero worries for him on the mound. So, going to get to see him as the DH role, hopefully, today, probably.
No, I don't think so. I think what you just saw happen with Tommy White is the exact reason why you won't see Paul Skeens hit maybe at all this season. He's too valuable as the Friday night starter. And, realistically, his future in pro baseball is as a pitcher. I mean, he's a good hitter, but he's not an elite hitter.
All right, so we're not going to see him. I thought we might see him DH a little bit this weekend, but if you're saying they're too worried about him getting hurt, I fully understand that. AJ, what are your takeaways from this opening weekend of games, Friday night?
I mean, just touching back on Paul Skeens, he's kind of the only ace who lived up to the billing in game one. Chase Dolander gets the loss. I don't think he had one of those last year.
He did not.
No, that was the first loss of his career.
Yeah, he didn't get through 5 innings. Will Sanders only threw 4 innings. Carter Holton only threw 3 and change. These were guys who, we were looking to be studs, and it is early. They're still working into it. They're still trying to, deal with the adrenaline and get everything situated. But, Paul Skeens was like, hey, I don't need that time. Let's go. 99 and change with his first fastball of the year, and he didn't throw anything easier than that. So Paul Skeens is the real deal. It doesn't matter, that adjustment from LSU or into the SEC. He's already made that jump.
Yeah. Sounds like it's loud down there, fellas, down there at the Globe Life. They got the music blaring there for you guys.
Yeah, they got the music going. The grounds crews out getting the field ready. Game times, at 11 o'clock. So they're getting pumped up. Fans are starting to come in.
All right.
Now,
well,
I'm gonna hold on, Mark. I'm gonna contend AJ's point a little bit here. There were a couple aces that were seen out on the town.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that
Hunter Elliott pitched pretty well. A&M's guy, whatever his name is, pitched pretty well.
did he?
that is not his name. And then Jake Brooks, he pitched pretty well for UCLA too. So there was some star power out there on the mound. But he is right. Chase Dolander obviously not getting the win. A lot of question marks for these arms because we thought it was going to be a lot of dominant pitching early on, but it's been a little bit of the bats. Not a ton of runs necessarily, but they've been getting to that starting pitching early. Maybe it's a bullpen year.
Well, there's the other thing too, guys. It's February, so you got to remember these pitch counts are lower 80s. They don't want these guys throwing a ton. They got a long season ahead of them, so a lot of these aces that we saw go less innings. It's because they were up in pitch count, and they really don't want these guys to throw a ton early in the season. we've seen it every year where the beginning, until about April, they don't really let these guys let loose over 100 pitches. So this is not surprising. It is surprising to see some of them stumble a little bit, but not surprising to see them get pulled early in games.
And Lucas Gordon looked good for Texas too. I know they ended up kind of pissing away at what he did, but he looked as dominant as last year and more the same. And it's almost kind of makes you a little bit nervous as a Texas fan that he looked as good as he did, and they didn't score any runs for him. He looked good, and Brady Tiger from Arkansas too, just coming in and shutting the door. Other than a pitch clock issue, that's going to be his big thing. He looked just as dominant.
Yeah, lots of good games yesterday. Let's move on a little bit here to the Golden Spikes picks. So those who don't know, we did a draft a few weeks ago where we drafted. We did a snake draft 1 through 5 or 1 through 15. Alex, you started us off. Why don't you defend your Golden Spikes picks, all three of them for us? Give us all three of your picks and tell us why about each one. Get a few minutes here.
Well, none of them did a whole lot, yesterday. But, Dylan Cruz, 40 home runs in 2 years. He's a career 360 hitter. I don't think really need to say anything more than that, right? He's the best player in college baseball, and not much more defense needed there. Wyatt Langford was my other pick, and he, all he did last season was hit 26 home runs, and he's poised for another year like that. And the only kind of question mark I would have with him is if they can protect him. If he doesn't, but even if they can, maybe he'll have a Sonny DeShera type year where he's on base 500, there's a 500 on base percentage and he walks a ton. And then, my last pick was Braden Montgomery. And all he does is hit home runs and throw 98.
Yeah. Those are three good picks. You did have the first overall pick, so you had number 1, number 10, and 11, correct?
Yeah.
You got a pretty good seed in there. Jake, why don't you go ahead and give us your picks that you had for the Golden Spikes?
Of course, I had Jack Moss with my first pick. I know it was just Seattle, and they're really not a baseball power at all, but he looked really good last night for him. Had 2 hits, 2 RBIs, walked, seemed to kind of be the face of Twitter, and he's going to need to come up big with Brett Minnick, going down for 6 weeks with his thumb. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what Schloss does with Boast and Targash, just to kind of see how he manages that. Then I had Rock Riggio too. I probably was just infatuated with the hair. He had 2 RBIs as well, went 1 for 4. And kind of more of the same from him as he's doing a PFP right in front of us. And then lastly, I went way off the board with Travis Honeyman. And I'm not sure how many publications are going to mention this, but Boston College lost 9-0 to Pepperdine, and he went over. They only had 3 hits. Granted, it was probably a cross-country road trip, and I probably missed home a little bit, I guess. But Boston College looked embarrassingly bad against Pepperdine, and Honeyman went over. So I'm kind of wishing I could repick that one, if I'm being honest with you.
That was some of your picks felt like a little bit of stretchy. That felt a little stretchy. They're stretchier than yoga pants, but we gotta love them, so it's all right. That's why we keep you around, Jake. Noah, why don't you go ahead and give me your Golden Spikes picks and how you feel like they're doing right now?
Well, in the first round, I took Paul Skeens, and everybody's talking about Paul Skeens. I'm a little concerned that he may not be hitting the ball, according to our insider Alexander over here. Hopefully, that is just scared money don't make money, and Paul Skeens is hitting 4 days a week, and then we're back to normal on Friday. And Chase Dolander, obviously getting the loss last night, but he pitched pretty well for what it was. If you give up 2 runs, usually that's enough to win the game and get a shout out all over Twitter for pitching really well. But overshadowed by that loss a little bit, and that's okay. People say losses and wins shouldn't be on pitchers. Personally, I think they should be. He lost the game. That's good enough. Good enough for me. And then we had Yohandy Morales. He had 1 ribby, 1 hit. I don't know if it was a homer. We'll say it was to make it sound better. But they lost the game, so I don't think Yohandy really cares about that. Work to be done there, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at so far with the dominance of Paul Skeens. So I'll give myself a solid B so far.
Early in the season, we've always talked about this. It's harder for pitchers to get on that award watch list because they just don't build up the stats till the end of the season. But 2 pitchers that will build stats, I think your head's in the right direction there. Pitcher hasn't won this award for quite a little while here, but we'll see what happens in the future. AJ, why don't you go ahead and give us your picks for the Golden Spikes?
I mean, my first pick was Vance Honeycutt, and this is just as a freshman, someone who had a 25 home run, 25 stolen base year, which is absurd in college baseball. He could have a 30-30 year, um, hit over 300. He's that good, and he's one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball. So he got one hit opening day. I'm not worried about that. Second pick, I had Nick Kurtz out of Wake Forest. I kind of picked him in the Ivan Melendez mold of, hey, who could hit 40 home runs if they wanted to? I was like, oh, this guy. And then he goes and blasts two on open day, including a grand slam. And I was like, yes, good start. Um, so that was fun. And then my third pick, kind of my projected pick of, who could take over a game, who could, kind of in that Adley Rushman role of dominate a game behind the plate and then be an offensive just juggernaut. I went Kyle Teal, and he hit a home run as well yesterday. So he's off to a good start. That entire Virginia offense was off to a good start last year. So,
No, AJ, you were off to a good start yesterday. Everything you said in the last week or so has come true. So we're going to need you to cool down. Unless
What
it
are those
means
lottery
South Carolina
numbers,
wins it all.
AJ?
Well, so no one's counting the losses. I did say that Missouri State would be competitive, and they lost to Cal Poly pretty big, and then Wofford did lose to Southern Illinois. But outside of that, I'm feeling pretty good about my picks.
Yeah, you got to feel good. You were doing good yesterday. Speaking off of the Virginia, I'm going to go ahead and talk about my Golden Spikes picks. I had Jake Geloff, who I really feel high on this year. Him and Teal are going to be a 1-2 punch that one of those guys could end up winning this award because they're going to have so many offensive production numbers here. That Virginia team can crush. They're just going to keep raking this year, a lot like their fellow ACC competitors, Wake Forest down there. And then I went with Carter Graham from Stanford. Big time first baseman. He's getting a lot of love down there. He had a little bit of a rough day yesterday against Cal State Fullerton. A lot of people didn't see that one coming as Stanford lost to Cal State Fullerton. But I think that he's going to have a lot. He had 22 home runs last season. Really was kind of in the silent offensive leader for that ball club. I expect to see more of that out of him. And then a top 5 draft pick that I really love, Matt Shaw from Maryland. He could hit 30 home runs this year and be the best shortstop in the Big Ten. So I'm really excited to see what Shaw does this year. I believe that he might hit 30 home runs and really have maybe 80 RBIs and really jump out on people's lists. He's kind of a silent guy that nobody talks about. But I love Matt Shaw up there at Maryland. I think that he could get a lot of numbers down there.
I don't know if being the best shortstop in the Big Ten is something to really brag about.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. One shortstop that was missing yesterday that is kind of interesting is Maui Ahuna did not play for Tennessee. We're getting word that it's because of eligibility issues. They're trying to work through some of those things, trying to figure out his academic eligibility from the Kansas days. Kind of strange, but when you look at that Tennessee team, are they missing more than that, AJ?
I mean, my big concern throughout the entire year is the leadership element. Like we know the power there. We know we know Dickey is going to be a great leadoff hitter. We know Blake Burke has power. When Merritt comes back, he's going to add some thump. But they didn't seem to have that same natural just swagger as last year's team, and you can't force that. When you do, it fails. That's what I see that they're missing. I mean, they scored 1 run yesterday. They haven't done that since 2021. They didn't do it at all last year.
Yeah.
So you lose a lot of talent, and then the last thing that offense needs is to start doubting itself.
It felt very whiny, I will say. I know that last year it kind of felt like swaggered with Gilbert and Lipschitz when they complained. When Tennessee complained last night, it felt really whiny, and it felt like a middle schooler almost. So that was kind of the one thing that really jumped out to me. And as well as I don't think they have like the leadership. And a lot of the stuff that they got away with last year, I think, was because they had some kind of leaderships like Lipschitz and Gilbert kind of check them. And it'll be interesting to see because they have a ton of talent, but they don't really have the one guy that you look at and go, okay, this is who we're following into battle. He's the leader. So that's going to be the thing that I think Tony's going to have to figure out on that long plane ride back to Knoxville is, what is this team? Because, complaining about not getting time is going to get really old really fast.
It's one thing when the batter is chirping the umpire, but when the same batter is chirping the half inning later while he's playing second base, that's just that it does come off as whiny, like Jake said. It's obviously day one, long way to go, but opening day always feels bigger than it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It does. Everything gets magnified on that first opening day. I mean, when you open up the season on Friday, February 17th, and all of a sudden all eyes are on you. And when you do great, it's awesome. When you do poorly, it gets magnified 10 times. So I'm excited to see what happens, but I'm a little worried. There's a lot of offenses in the SEC that I'm worried about. Ole Miss, Vandy, and Tennessee now. Put them on the list.
Well, Ole Miss did have an LSU legacy hit a bomb in his first home run. Eddie Furness's son walked up there at his first AB and smashed a bomb there for the Rebels.
Yeah, I see that they good. Congrats on beating Delaware. You're in Delaware, so I'm not so pumped about that. I still think Delaware can take a game. I believe Hunter Elliott was really good, so I'm it's fine. We're fine. Moving on, let's go to our pick'em. I know we had 6 picks this week. Do we have a graphic this week, Alex?
Well, we did, but since I'm on my phone and not on my laptop,
Okay, then I
no.
will just tell everybody what our picks were, and then we'll go around and tell our picks since I don't have them here in front of me. The first thing we did was pick the Globe Life Tournament. We picked either SEC to win or Big 12 to win. I personally took the SEC. Alex, who'd you take?
I also took the SEC.
Jake?
I took the Big 12. I really was worried about Vandy, kind of, and they were kind of the teeter-totter for me. I thought Texas was going to do a little bit better and beat Arkansas, but I had the Big 12 just simply because of the Missouri and Vandy factor.
You're still doing okay there. You're up 2-1 right now. AJ?
I took the SEC. I just don't think that the Big 12 has the depth across the board that the SEC teams do outside of Missouri.
Yeah, I'm worried that I just don't think that I just don't know if Missouri can hang on enough for these guys right now and come back, but we'll see. Is that like a fire alarm over there?
Yeah, they're making like announcements for people that are starting to file into the fans.
Noah, who'd you have? SEC or Big 12?
Yeah, I took the Big 12 in this one. I thought it was just kind of too top-heavy for the Big 12. You got all their good teams in there for the most part. The SEC kind of has some question marks, like everybody else said. Vandy's depth on the mound, and then Missouri is just who they are, and that's fine. No disrespect to Missouri, but they're just not quite on the level of an Oklahoma State, TCU, and Texas.
All right, and then we went out to the MLB Desert Invite. I'm a little frustrated with myself because I had Arizona written down and I switched it to Tennessee, so I took Tennessee out there. Alex, who'd you have in the MLB Desert Invite?
I also had Tennessee, so not feeling great about that pick right now, but it's only one game.
Jake?
I really wanted to go with Tennessee, but obscurely I picked Grand Canyon just because they're a really exciting team with Jacob Wilson. I really didn't think they would beat Tennessee, but I do feel a little bit better. But they're probably going to get the wrath of Tennessee today and lose like 15-0. So that's the only thing I'm worried about.
Got a little bit frustrated. You're correct there. That might be. They probably wanted Arizona to lose that game last night. So, but going into today, it's going to be interesting. AJ, who'd you take in the MLB Desert Invite?
I had Tennessee written down, and then I went, you know what? I got a feeling about this Arizona team. So I picked Arizona.
Yeah, you are Teflon right now. You can't be touched.
Yeah, and I went the other way. I had Arizona written down, and I switched to Tennessee. So AJ and I are just opposite sides of the same coin right now. Thanks. Noah, who'd you have in the MLB Desert Invite?
I had an extreme outlier pick. I went with Michigan, but when I sent it to Alex, I said Michigan because I don't know how this tourney works, but I have Tennessee losing, so I assume they can't win it. So I was right on with Tennessee losing. I didn't say win, but I actually think Tennessee was going to lose to Grand Canyon. So I think Tennessee might start 0-2 today. Whoa.
Oh, we got the graphics. Michigan. Your Michigan team did lose to Michigan State last night.
Yeah, and they had to play a doubleheader, which was bogus.
They had to play the only 2 games in that day. So
somebody else, Youngstown State, also played 2 yesterday.
Opening day doubleheaders should not be a thing.
Yep.
And Loyola Marymount, they're 0-2.
Loyola.
Yeah. I'm not Catholic.
Naturally, they called it Gatorade.
I love how
All
your
right.
defense was, I'm not Catholic.
Next, we went down to Stanford in the Stanford-Cal State Fullerton series. Do we got that graphic up there next?
Yeah.
Stanford across the board. And boy, do we have egg on our face. That Stanford team came out flat, flat, flat. Quinn Matthews picked up right where he was last year, which is struggling a little bit there on the starting pitching side. It's going to be interesting to see what Stanford does. We know that they have pitching issues this year, and that offense was not there yesterday. Alex, what did you see about that game?
Well, I didn't get to actually watch that game. I was driving up here to Arlington, but just from kind of looking at the box score, man, I just can't believe that Stanford only scored one run. Like this was a team. Carter Graham, Drew Bowser, Braden Montgomery. Like these guys should rake. But one game sample size. It's 1 of 56. They still got time.
Yep, there's a lot of time left, so it's just interesting there to see that. Jake?
I was really impressed with what Quinn Matthews kind of did. I know he had, the loss, but, to go 5 innings, only give up 2 runs against a team like Stanford with their bats, you have to feel really good as a coach. So that one's really not on him, but I'm sure that the fan Stanford that were there, like all 12 of them were mad that Stanford lost. That was probably egged into it a little bit as they had the highest of highs, playing in Omaha in front of crowds and then going to, Kleinfield and Sunken Diamond. It probably drained you a little bit, so I got to get kind of used to, creating their own energy again.
AJ?
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of playing with house money right now because I had Cal State Fullerton just being kind of a surprise team. I thought that they might take a game in this series. And like watching the game, it was, they weren't just blasting the ball around the yard really. It was a lot of like balls that deflected off the shortstop's glove, balls that just squeaked through the infield, and it was just literally a death by 1,000 cuts with that Cal State Fullerton offense. So score probably looked worse than it was in terms of pitching for Stanford, but that offense needs to wake up.
Yeah, that Cal State Fullerton team was remembrances of George Horton, who just got in the College Baseball Hall of Fame, so congrats to Coach Horton. But yeah, they looked good. They beat Stanford in every aspect of the game really yesterday. Noah?
Yeah, just like Alex or AJ said, it was just a lot of singles and situational hitting for Cal State Fullerton. So maybe that's the way you go to beat a team that kind of pounds the ball. Stanford hit over 100 homers last year, or whatever stat you had, Mark.
Yeah.
So yeah, just not a typical Stanford baseball game. We'll see if they can get back on track. I'm not totally against the idea of them winning the next 2, but there's got to be a big swing because Fullerton looked pretty good.
Yeah, Stanford 118 home runs yesterday, or not yesterday. That'd be impressive. Last year, and
they lost.
And they lost with 118 home runs. It's so crazy. No, it's just really crazy though to see that Stanford offense came out flat. A lot of good offensive came out flat. So we're gonna have to see what happens here. We know it's pitching can dominate early, but we're gonna have to see what happens here with these offenses. I'm really kind of surprised. Next, we had Liberty at Southern Miss, I believe. Everybody took Southern Miss, and they did beat Liberty yesterday. Alex, explain your pick.
I mean, especially for yesterday, Tanner Hall just went out and shoved. He just proved again that he's one of the best pitchers in all of college baseball. And, it's amazing to think that they had Tanner Hall and Hurston Waldrop on the same team last year. It's unfortunate for them they couldn't keep Hurston Waldrop, but, yeah, I mean, they're just a really good baseball team.
Yeah, I really like this team. I think offensively they're good, and if Tanner Hall can really be that Friday night starter, they really do have a chance again to host. Jake?
I always love a good early season Southern Miss battle. It seems like they're always one of those hot teams at the beginning that kind of tampers off, and it was kind of a popular pick that they were going to be the one that takes a step back. I mean, it seemed like in a lot of those spaces that was kind of the consensus is, yeah, I think Southern Miss is going to step back. I don't really know why, and I'm not sure how much they follow it, but Liberty's a very talented team, and you can hang your hat that this is a good one for Southern Miss. I mean, they got Andy Cannizzaro fired at Mississippi State a couple of years ago when they swept him, and more of the same.
Oh boy, bringing up old stuff already, man. This is happening. Wow. It's college baseball season. We're already chirpy. and Notre Dame lost. So we're all happy. AJ, what did you see there with the Southern Miss?
I mean, looking at this series, I went, okay, Tanner Hall's going to win them game 1, and then the offense is still potent. It's going to win them game 2, and they still have pitching depth behind them. It's not like they have Tanner Hall and then me out there. Like, and I know that you look and they're like, oh yeah, they lost Hurston Waldrop. They lost some veteran presence. I would like to thank Southern Miss for Will McGillis. He hit 2 home runs for South Carolina yesterday. That was awesome. But there's still a lot there, and so I think, they might be a popular pick to regress, but it's still a very dangerous team.
Still a great team, yeah. They still return like 97 home runs in that lineup. Yeah. So the offense is not missing anything. Noah?
Yeah, good team, great program. They're in our top 25 for a reason. Obviously, Tanner Hall is really, really, really good. And they have some other guys that we'll see. Again, would be great if they had Waldrop. But we know that Southern Miss does have to be careful because, as they taught Andy Cannizzaro, when you start to sweep around, there's a target on your back.
Start beating people up, all of a sudden people want to punch down at you. So we're going to have to see what happens there. But good first game there for Southern Miss. I expect them to go ahead and win this series as well. Our next one was Nebraska at San Diego. I know, weird pick here. There's not a lot of different series this early in the season.
What is this, Adrian?
So they play a 4-game series. So I actually had a tie
split.
I had a tie picked.
Okay. All right, I like that. I can appreciate that.
That might be the first one in weekend rotation history.
And then Alex was like, "Well, what the heck are you doing, dude?" I was like, "Well, if you make me pick a winner, I'm gonna go San Diego." But my true pick is a 2-2 split.
A 2-2 split, that counts. I mean, we'll give that's a pick. That's a pick, and if you get the point if nobody else gets it if it's a 2-2 split. So I like where you're at, Alex. San Diego, easy choice here for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Big Ten school. I'm going to take the not Big Ten school.
It's as easy as that. You don't pick the mediocre 11. Plus, San Diego was a very good team last year. They lost a couple guys to the draft, but they're still very good. They still get a lot of players. Shout out to Chris Bryant. I believe he was a San Diego alumni who also won the Golden Spike. Jake?
Who had Jay Johnson as his hitting coach.
You can tell he didn't have Wes Johnson.
Jake Fever.
A lot to go and do some of the little things like base running, PFP, stuff like that, where you're not in an indoor facility. It makes a really big difference. And early on, that's why I think you kind of see some of these northern teams struggle. And, San Diego's not really a slouch at all. They probably should have been a lot higher. They made the tournament. They have the fat version of me on their team. So this was a very easy pick for me.
Oh, that was one of my favorite pictures last year. I found that guy. It's like, oh my God, it's Walmart Jake McKeever. It was fantastic.
Or is Jake Walmart that guy?
I think I'm Costco. I'm the Costco version of that guy.
Yeah, Jake's a little step. He's not exactly that far of a drop down to the Walmart version. AJ, you obviously went split here. So, Noah, what did you think about this San Diego team?
Yeah, San Diego projected to win their conference. Pretty good team. They'll be in the NCAA tournament if they do just that. Nebraska, probably not an NCAA tournament team. So pretty easy pick, but I will admit I had no idea it was a 4-game series. I might have jumped on this whole Nebraska board San Diego thing, but San Diego won last night, so I guess we're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I got to see San Diego play more than I got to see Nebraska play. I saw them play 7 times last year against Oregon and then up at the Corvallis Regional. San Diego's for real. That's a good team. It's coached well. They do the little things correctly. And like Jake said, they get to practice outdoors for their entire preseason, which is a big difference compared to some schools like Nebraska. So, yeah, easy pick for me to go San Diego here. And then our last pick'em, Game 6, Gonzaga versus Texas Tech. I, of course, took the Zag Dogs. I really thought that they would go down and give Texas Tech. They gave them a little scare early, but Texas Tech came back to win that first game. Alex, what did you pick on this one? Alex, you took the Zag Dogs as well?
I did. I went with Gonzaga. I felt really good about that pick, through the first couple of innings, but man, it did not go our way for game 1. But, and since they lost game one, I don't know if they're gonna be able to win the series. I don't know if they can beat, just win the next two games. But they're a really good team, and I thought Texas Tech was taking a step back, and maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, I thought that Gonzaga could go down there. They've been a good team here for the last few years. I thought that they'd go down and win this game, and they just did not in game one. They had a good lead, and then they just couldn't hang on to it. Jake?
Kind of more of the same for me. I really thought Texas Tech was going to come out. I think that they're kind of another team like Southern Miss, where they're the popular team to hate, but they have a really, really good bullpen, and that kind of showed through for them. Another thing, too, is I think with all the home run props and everything that's been banned, the bullpen boys at Texas Tech, that might be the best college baseball home run celebration now, where they jump on the bullpen and hang out, just because you don't have hammers to bang or pimp coats to put on. And Texas Tech looked really good. It'll be kind of interesting to see where they fall in if they end up being even a top 5 team in Texas, but they looked pretty good early.
I saw that the props are not allowed, but I saw in softball the other day that Texas in their dugout has the slam dunk home runs. I don't know if you guys saw this, but every time they hit a home run, they have like a little mini hoop that they do a slam dunk on. Hopefully that doesn't get taken away. I don't know why they keep stealing all the best things about baseball from us, but we'll continue on. AJ?
So apparently props are allowed just in the dugout. They're not allowed on the field of play. So I can't remember what game I was watching on the Wheels YouTube account yesterday to try to catch up, but they celebrated a home run with a prop. It was a football helmet on the field. And then the umpire went over after every home run later on to make sure the football helmet stayed in the dugout. And I'm just like, if we're putting our energy towards that, that's the wrong focus. But yeah, I think Texas Tech is going to sneak up on some people this year, at least early. Losing a guy like Chase Young, he is going to be. He was kind of a dude, and so it's like okay. And then Gonzaga is a sneaky good program, so I kind of saw y'all leaning that way. But I just think Texas Tech is. It's an elite program for a reason. They find themselves hosting super regionals fairly frequently for a reason. So I had to ride with the Red Raiders.
It's a good ball club down there, and Coach is, of course, a fan of the show, so we got to love on him a little bit. Tadlock down there. Noah, you obviously did not this time, though. You picked the Zag Dogs with me. You went West Coast bias. What's up with that?
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the term Zag Dogs, but I did pick Gonzaga to win this one, and I was pretty jacked up for a while there, and then they had a nice 4-1 lead, and then decided that they didn't want to do anything else for the rest of the game. So as soon as Gonzaga learns that the games are 9 innings and not 4, I'm going to really like this pick, but I don't know if they're going to learn that this weekend or not.
It's a private school. They have a hard time counting, of course, so we're going to have to see what happens. Keep going forward there. It's still about 21 degrees in Spokane, so yeah, and they're in basketball mode still, so we're a little early on the Zag Dogs being good right now at baseball, but I still like the pick. We'll see what happens here in the next couple games. All right, we got a little bit of time left here, fellas. We are at 8:47. We want to be done here. Well, I guess 10:47 for you guys and 11:47 for you, AJ. So, AJ, I'm going to start you off with a question here. Does Will Sanders have enough to win the SEC title for this South Carolina team? We saw that the offense came through a little bit yesterday. Are we excited, or are we feeling like this is an SEC title team?
I mean, I think you look around and you're like, okay, if Tennessee has a little bit of an identity crisis, struggles a little bit, and Vandy's not as deep as some people think they are, then that door swings wide open. And I'm not worried about the pitching staff at South Carolina at all. One person can have a bad day. There's 14, 15 arms who can go and throw critical innings. The question for South Carolina is the offense, and they're not going to put up 20 runs maybe again this season. That's just not something you can count on. But I loved the approaches for them yesterday. They walked more times than they struck out. I'm excited about that offense. And if their identity can just be grind out at bats, that works no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, and they looked really good yesterday on both sides of the ball there. Again, Will Sanders didn't get a ton of innings, but that's not unheard of here early in the season. Noah, when you look at Maryland, they lost yesterday to a good Bulls team. But can they be a top 8 seed? Do they get this as their last chance really without USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten to be the king of the Big Ten? What do we see here from Maryland?
Yeah, they absolutely can be a top 8 seed, but not if they play like they did last night. It was a lot closer than the score, or not as close as the score said. They hit a grand slam in the 8th inning to kind of make it interesting, but couldn't get over that hump. Obviously, if you score 2 more runs, we're saying, oh, what a great gutsy win for Maryland. But really, they lost by about 5 runs, and it was just not a great performance for the Maryland bats, and you kind of count on that pitching to show up, and obviously it wasn't too good either with Savakul on the mound. So there's a lot of improvement for Maryland, but you're not as worried about Maryland as maybe you are Stanford if we're going just based off of runs scored and some of the how the team looked. But top 8 is going to be tough to do in that Big Ten where nobody watches you. You really, really have to prove it. So not a good start.
Yeah, the 2-3-4 hitters yesterday going 1 for 11 for Maryland, not a good look. And then Savakul will get beat up a little bit. Kind of surprising, but I do think that this team can really win their way to a top 8 seed. But you got to win these early games when the Big Ten's so bad to get those seeds up high enough. So we're going to have to see there. Jake, you still with us here? I don't know if I think we lost Jake. I think he's
I'll answer his question for me. Lay it on me and I'll say what Jake would say. No, rats.
Oh, he's back.
They're doing the national anthem.
Yeah,
They're doing the national anthem.
Oh, well, you guys stand up and do your national anthem things. So Jake had A&M, and they're all over the place in rankings. Does Yeski have enough fire pin in this bullpen to earn a regional host? What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, I actually think we're going to miss the NCAA tournament this year. I kind of think that we kind of have a bad team, and that's the thing with my A&M is that we've always kind of whenever we have those expectations, we kind of suck, and whenever it's kind of an unknown, we're kind of good. So we're probably going to play like UT later on, and then we're going to beat them. But after that, it's really all icing on the cake for me. So I don't really care what we do, just as long as we kind of keep the team and just give me some exciting baseball. That's really all you can ask for A&M.
Why do I sound like a sorority girl in their eyes?
I was going to say, go Ducks.
I sound like a sorority girl, I guess. But that's a pretty good summary.
Respect the national anthem.
I got my hat.
Oh, no, and we lost Alex. I had a question for Alex about LSU being the consensus number 1. Do they break the curse? I'll let you guys answer this one. AJ, why don't you start with me? I know that the curse started off bad for them, already losing Tommy White. How are we looking now?
It started off bad losing Tommy White, but then when you can lean back on an arm like Paul Skeens, who can just anchor any rotation, they should have no fears right now across college baseball. But the tricky thing about baseball is you can be the best team and then catch a bad 2 out of 3 game series and your season's over at the wrong time. So it's a dangerous game to predict like that, but LSU is number 1 for a reason, and it looks like they're heads and shoulders above whoever the number 2 team is right now.
Yeah. Alex, do they break the curse?
Oh, and he's doing technical difficulties. But I can answer that A&M question if you want, Mark. We can kick it back. I love talking about A&M.
Oh my! We're past A&M. We're on to the next one.
They're the number 2.
Yeah, I think with LSU, we're just like the greatest team ever assembled, and we can do no wrong. And I know we're going to play Florida at some point this year, and it's going to be really good. Dylan Cruz already has like 52 home runs, I think, after one day. And,
he's leading it, yeah.
Tommy White might be hurt, but that pitcher should have never thrown a pickoff because that shouldn't be allowed when Tommy White's on first base. So that's all I have to say about that. But Tennessee, they kind of suck, so we're going to win the SEC now.
Tennessee was terrible.
Are we allowed to call up throwaway Tommy now his arm's hurt, or is that too soon?
It's throwaway tanks. It's throwaway tanks.
I like throwing away Tommy better because it sounds like a Tommy gun. He's just throwing it all over the place.
They answered it for you.
ACC or SEC, who has the better non-conference winning percentage? I know we've been fighting this for years. Last year, ACC won by 1/1000th of a point. I'm going to let you go ahead first here, Jake, since you're going to talk about your team. ACC or SEC, better non-conference winning percentage?
I think ACC, because I noticed they had a lot more cupcakes when they were doing the scheduling. It seemed like they played a lot of, like, for Virginia Tech, for example, outside of this week with them with College of Charleston, they're going to roll. So other than that, I think that's going to be the indicator. And then I think the bottom of the SEC is a little bit worse this year than the bottom of the ACC. I don't think outside of Boston College, I think they're kind of an anomaly in the ACC. There really doesn't seem to be a second worst team, whereas if the SEC, you can point at Missouri, Bama, Kentucky, Georgia. There's a few contenders for that second worst spot. So I think ACC is going to take it again.
Okay, AJ.
I would like to remind Jake that Pittsburgh is an ACC team. So
Hey, they won. They put up double-digit runs.
okay, well, win doesn't mean great. You also left off Boston College, who got.
I said they're the anomaly. They're the one.
But Boston College is other teams' cupcakes. So let's reevaluate that. I'm thinking SEC, just because there are some weaker teams. Like Missouri's going to go and just get kind of beat around this weekend. That's not going to shock anybody. But it still wouldn't shock me if every SEC team had a record over 500 at the end of the year, and that only happens with kind of weaker non-conference schedules. Tennessee, I don't think they play a true road game until the conference starts.
Yeah.
So at Arkansas, I think it's the same thing. And so when you're playing at home and you're playing weaker competition at home, you're going to get more wins than teams like Virginia Tech, who travel and play competitive series early.
Yeah, the SEC seemed to schedule a lot of home games, which is smart. Why not? I mean, that gives you the advantage of going into the tournament and having a lot more wins. I fully support it. I do think that it helps them out. What do you think here, Noah? ACC or SEC?
Yeah, it could really go either way, but I think obviously AJ has a little bit more of a data-driven argument, but for whatever reason, Jake sold me on just kind of how some teams in the SEC kind of have that clear, like, yeah, they're not very good this year. He did throw an Alabama in there, which was a swing and a miss, but the other teams were accurate. And there's just going to be so many of those teams that are going to lose games that'll help out. And I know that teams like North Carolina play a pretty favorable schedule. Obviously, it doesn't help when they lose opening day, but Miami too, same kind of deal. So the ACC can only go up, whereas the SEC is just kind of think they're going to stay where they are. We know what the SEC is.
I am surprisingly going to take the stance of SEC this year. I know I pushed so hard last year for ACC. Last year, SEC proved me wrong. I'm going to stick with the SEC. I think that they actually have a better conference this year. I am worried about a lot of the pitching for the ACC as far as non-conference goes. I think that they could get beat in some non-conference games because of pitching. And I do believe the SEC is just better overall this year again. So, unfortunately, as much as my heart wants to say ACC, I'm going to go SEC on this one. All right. Final thoughts, guys. We got a couple more minutes here before we get into these first set of games. Noah, I'm going to let you start.
Just final comments. Yeah, just excited for today. A lot of rebound games for some teams. I think maybe Tennessee gets it done. I did predict them to lose to Grand Canyon, but I also thought they'd beat Arizona, so I don't necessarily see them losing 2 in a row, but I'll claim to be correct if they do. Stanford, they've got a rebound. I think Stanford might put up like 15 runs today just to remind them that they're Stanford. Big day for some teams. Arkansas, TCU, clear your afternoon plans, evening plans. You're watching TCU, Arkansas. That's going to be great. Very jealous of Jake. More so Jake than Alex, because Alex has to be near Jake. So,
Jesus. Jake, final thoughts?
I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. Campbell beating Rutgers. That didn't get mentioned. That was kind of an under-the-radar game. And Cal State Northridge, the Matadors, beating Stony Brook 20-5. They put up 20 runs. Anytime that happens, even against somebody like Stony Brook, it has to be celebrated. And last thoughts is on TV, Enrique Bradfield's glove looks blue, but in person, it's like the coolest glove I've ever seen. It is hands down the coolest thing I've seen this weekend is Enrique Bradfield's glove.
We're really bringing it. We're deep. We're deep into baseball here. AJ.
Again, a couple teams need to bounce back. Oregon State's one of those teams. Just throwing that knife at you real quick.
Thanks.
North Carolina is one of those teams. Like teams, if they want to really get going in the right direction, need to bounce back soon. And then the Arkansas TCU game is going to be absolutely electric. I can't wait for my College of Charleston Cougars to close out the series win and put themselves in a position for a sweep tonight against the overrated Virginia Tech Hokies.
You think they beat Hack tonight?
Oh, absolutely.
You know what? I'm excited for Delaware to go out and give Ole Miss a game. I hope that my prediction there of Delaware beating Ole Miss one time this weekend will be correct. Oregon State does need to bounce back. We're really excited. Again, when it talks about excitement, let's talk about our partners there at Home Field Apparel. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Go look out their stuff. It's so great. CBC15 is the code. You get 15% off your first order. Again, for Alex, who's not here, Jake, AJ, Noah, and myself, thanks for joining us on Saturday morning. We'll be here every day, every week, all the way through college baseball season. Thanks, folks.
See y'all later.